जागरण जो कि हिंदी बेल्ट में है और छोटे शहरों से जुड़ा हुआ है, वो भी मीडिया में आ गए हैं, वो भी टेक्नोलॉजी में आ गए हैं। तो हमको ऐसा पूर्ण विश्वास है इसको देखते हुए कि हम जरूर से ज़रूर बहुत अच्छा करेंगे। धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका। बहुत सिंप्लीफाइड शब्दों में आज सभा को आपने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग टेक अवेज, बहुत पहलुओं पर समझाया और अपना ज्ञान हमारे साथ साझा किया। आई कैन वाउच फॉर द फैक्ट दैट एवरीवन इन द ऑडियंस had a good opportunity of learning and understanding a lot from your address. Thank you once again. Can we have a huge round of applause for sir? बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। With this, coming up next is a special address by Mr. Golok Kumar Simli, Chief Technology Officer, Passport Seva, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. And this address will be on the topic, New Age Tech for Transformation of Government Services in One Go. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing the occasion.
Very good morning to all of you. Let me at the outset thanks Jagran New Media, Mr. Gaurav and team for having me here. I think right from morning we are listening about digital, we are listening about transformation at large. We are also listening about saying that how is we as a country moving forward. But I'll little bit change the track. I'll purely focus on how is that we are leveraging technology, how is that we are breathing in, breathing out technology when we are doing this large transformation. Whether, many of my predecessors spoke about large transformation like Aadhaar or UPI or GST, or maybe passport is one of the services which we are discussing, right? In my view, I think when we talk about transformation, when you talk about thinking for a larger public good, when I say larger public good, it is at a grassroots scale. Let me quote a simple example so that we can connect. Now, when you say at a grassroots level, for an example, assume that Aadhaar is a platform. Everybody we have, one and each one of the citizens is having Aadhaar as an identity document, and that document is making us powerful to connect to the ecosystem of the government at large or the industry at large. Whenever I am, let's say, opening a bank account, or I am seeking for a passport service, or maybe I am filing an income tax, right? So when you talk about these large transformation, as I said, can we think at a grassroots level? The another connect which we want to make it here, saying that when you talk at a grassroots level, many of us sitting here from the industry and other kind of various verticals, I think the idea is all of us, we must ensure that, and that is what I think the day we started digital transformation journey, or even before that, during the NEGP time, the idea was how do you bridge those gaps? And what are those gaps? Gaps in terms of literacy and illiteracy, gaps in terms of rural and urban, gaps in terms of economic conditions across the country. How do we bridge that gaps? And believe me, each of these transformation, whatever we are doing, for an example, I can watch today, or you all can watch for me, saying that if you are seeking a passport services, I don't make any difference whether you apply from Delhi, Mumbai or Chennai, or a poor citizens or a farmer applying from a remote corner of, let's say, UP, Bihar or Jharkhand. I don't make any difference. Right? But then how was it possible? What all we did for that? I think that is the crux. And the crux there is we need to innovate, we need to come out of those traditional approach, the traditional way we are dealing with the people. the traditional way we are dealing with the citizens. And what are the new approaches? The new approaches is we are collaborating with industry. The new approach is we are using technology at the grassroots level. The new approach is we are innovating a lot of business model. You can ask me that, saying that these things were happening maybe earlier also, but why is that we are not so much of a successful before? The question is of sustainability. It's not about one-time exercise. It's not about one go. Can you sustain over a time? And how do you bring that sustainability? To bring that sustainability, those traditional approach, those budgeted model, those traditional way of looking the transformation journey, nothing was working. And that is why I am saying that when we are transforming at a grassroots level, everything is new here. In terms of innovation, in terms of business model, in terms of looking technology end to end. It's not a silo approach. No more a silo approach. And what is the beauty of that? Any of these platforms we can name. The Aadhaar scheme alone, I think, if I name just one of the scheme, the DBT scheme, you know how much we can save the leakage? Almost more than rupees 2 lakh crore. Only one scheme could save this much of a leakage. Can you imagine? If I am dealing with passport services, not only in India and globally, every month I am dealing with more than 1.5 million of people, right? Every month. If I am talking about GST collection, more or less on an average, we are collecting almost rupees 2 lakh crore per month GST collections. And that is where I think technology becoming savior for all of us. When we are dealing with, I always say that in technology terms, those 5 Ws. And what are those 5 Ws? The first and foremost W is the workload, your data, right? Your business in hand. How do you deal with your business? How do you deal with your data? Whether it is on-prem or it is cloud, that immaterial, right? There are a lot of your workload which is being dealt on-prem. There are a lot of workload being dealt maybe over the cloud. There are a lot of workload which is dealt in a hybrid way. But do we really understand our data sets, right? Do we really have a data strategy? Today we have enabled DPDP Act. But how many of us, we have our data strategy in place? When I say data strategy in place, in all sense. In terms of people, in terms of processes, in terms of technology, but don't forget the rules of engagement. And what are those rules of engagement? This is your compliances, these are your regulations, these are today we have enabled DPDP Act, right? The another basic fundamental, I think, where we are missing or where we were actually missing earlier, other than having this data strategy on the workload side, the another very important criteria of a big transformation and a sustainability is your workforce. Very important. Believe me, when we are enabling these big programs, I think we delayed these programs by 1 and 2 years just to enable your workforce at large. When I say workforce, it's not about your own employee. It's about your stakeholders. It is also about citizens. How do you take them along, the entire workforce, in terms of digital alignment, in terms of digital realignment, in terms of making them training, skilling, and it's a continuous process. It's not one-day exercise. That means, can we make kind of this workforce journey also part and parcel of your digital journey? That is the second W. The third W is the workplace. Soon after COVID-19, every one of us, we are realizing, whether Gauravji is sitting from media houses, coming from, let's say, government side, some of you are from industry side. The boundary has become actually boundaryless. There is no boundary today. What I am trying to deal with, people? I'm trying to deal with 24 by 7, 365 a day, anytime, anywhere, 24 by 7, any device kind of a scenario. And I think that is where today I must speak, saying that when we talk about technology, economy sense we talk about, I think we all have heard about something called market equilibrium. And what is that market equilibrium? I mean, that is a state where the market plays a role where your demand and supply is stable. And why is that? Because the price is stable. Now, in technology term, if I say that, can you create a market equilibrium, no, in terms of dealing with all of you? There is a big exercise to be done, right? There are a lot of innovation to be done. There are a lot of innovation not only in terms of, as I said, technology per se, but also in terms of business model, in terms of processes, and also in terms of dealing with the entire ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, it is not only about the data alone, right? So can we do that? So that is the, I think, the third W, the workforce. The fourth W is the workflow, the applications. We are generating plethora of applications, apps, you have enterprise applications, and even these apps are working on various platforms, so sometime iOS, sometime Android, right? Now, if we are doing that, can I have that visibility? Can I have that observability, whether my application is working from, let's say, my on-prem data center, or is it working from, let's say, my cloud variance data center? Can I really that have visibility, observability, in terms of, again, in terms of data, in terms of transactions, in terms of dealing with those security and privacy concerns? Can we have that? So it's not about an application alone. And also when we deal with, as I said, at a mass scale, can we differentiate those vernacular gap, those kind of illiteracy gaps? So how do you create those applications? How do you develop those apps where you can have end-to-end visibility, observability, not differentiating between rural and urban? Can we have that? That is the fourth W. And the fifth W is the most powerful, is the web. Everything you are dealing with web today. Your Google is, I think, your mobile and Google is the most powerful tool. These are the two powerful tools which is available on cyberspace all the time, right? And when we are dealing with these 5 Ws, another very important aspects to be remembered is we must ensure, I as a government or you from industry, can I another ensure those 4 S? And what are those 4 S? It is speed, scale, security, and sustainability. Can I do that? Right? And if I am able to achieve that, I think our job is the opportunity, the scale, the kind of new innovations we can do in all of these areas. The opportunity is enormous. Right? The last thing I must say that after enablement from this DPDP Act, I think now we are heading towards another sense of kind of a safeguarding all of us, not only in terms of we as ourselves as a person, as an individual, but also as organizations. And also how do you deal with this kind of compliances, regulations, law of the land. And there I must say there are 4 very important factors or aspects we need to work on when we work on the technology front, when we work on creating our workforce and skilling or reskilling our workforce, when I'm dealing with my workload, right? And what are these 4 factors, crucial factors after we are having or moving towards this new act, DPDP Act? The first factor is the consent. Let me quote another example so that we can connect. We all have heard about something called account aggregator, right, which RBI has recently enabled. What it does, what actually the account aggregator does, that means a financial information seeker and the financial information provider and the principal owner of the data. There are three players in this entire chain. And the beauty of such aggregator is the open banking system, banking to all, right? So similar is the example, if I can quote, let's say you are applying for a passport services. You do that and you have applied for, let's say, change of address. You do that. Now suddenly when you apply for a passport services for changing your address, I can simply ask that, hey gentlemen, you have applied for passport services and you are changing your address from A to B. But would you also like to change your address in Aadhaar, driving license, this card, that card? Why can't I do that? I must do that. Why is that every time I force you to go to driving license, no, this card, that card? Why is that? And to do that, the same concept, why I gave that example, how do we exchange these data sets with the digital consent or electronic consent of the principal owner of the data without violating the security and privacy concerns? That must be intact. And that must be engaged with the rules of the engagement. That is the law of the land. Let's say, for an example, DPDP Act. So this DPDP Act, the first and prime factor is the consent and the concept of aggregator. That is more and more we will be developing going forward. The second is the rights and duties of the principal owner of the data. We must understand what is the rights and duties under this act of the principal owner of the data. Unless you understand that, you will not be able to govern that data, neither you will be able to justify the data which you are collecting for a purpose. For an example, I collect data for issuance of passport, right? But how do I justify that data going forward, saying that I'm not violating in terms of law? The third principle is the applicability. How do you apply that? Once you collect data, how do you apply that? Right? Whether you do a primary use or you are doing a secondary use. How do you do that? And in all sense, there is something called the data fiduciary, right? For an example, for passport, we are the data fiduciary. You are the principal owner of the data. So the obligations of the data fiduciary is very important. Right? So if you understand this, I think, four concepts of this DPDP Act, and in any kind of a dispute, how do you move? One is the Act alone, but before that, there is something called an arbitrator, which is the Data Protection Board, right? So these 5 factors will drive all of us when we are developing new technology, when we are applying new technology, when we are doing innovation in any of these areas. And then the beauty is all of these, you need data. And it's data, it's about your and my data. Whether it is a structured data or whether it is an unstructured data, that's a different call altogether, but it's all about data. Right? So I think in all sense, if I have to summarize, I must say that I think technology has enabled us, it will continue to enable us, it will continue to generate opportunity, it will continue to drive us, provided, I think, those 4-5 areas, if we take care in terms of collaboration, in terms of engagement, in terms of driving the data sets, and at the end of the day, we must not forget those rules of engagement. That is the law of the land. I think that's how I rest my special address. Maybe we can take 1-2 questions if Gaurav ji permit, or I'll raise my address. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was telling sir that since it was a holistic approach and a lot of data which everyone wanted to understand, or knowledge driven content everyone wanted to have,